Good evening, and I would like to welcome you all to the Mayor and Council Open Mic Night meeting. I was remiss in letting you know during the work session that Councilmember Palermo is not in attendance and it is not with an approved absence. And I'm not sure if he will be joining us for this Open Mic Night meeting, and I'll let you know if he does join us. So first, we'd like to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I would like to ask Mr. Fisher to lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. And it looks like we've got two folks that are waiting to speak this evening. And I would like to say that we limit it to 5 minutes. And I will apologize to the speakers right now in the event Councilmember Palermo has joined us. I would like to let everyone know that there is a 5-minute limit, and I apologize. The Zoom will cut you off rather abruptly, so I apologize for that. But here's the other good news, and that is this is our last Zoom meeting, and we will be moving forward with in-person meetings our next meeting, and hopefully that will continue. So hopefully we'll never go back into a COVID, I don't even know what to call the COVID thing anymore, but hopefully that won't affect us going forward. And I look forward to it. I know that you all will as well. These Zoom meetings, well, I'm thankful, very thankful that we've got the technology that we've been able to function through this. It is still, it's been taxing. It's just a difficult way to meet. It's a difficult way to communicate. So I'm looking forward to being back in person. So having said that, the first speaker is a Mr. Frederic Guino.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
I don't know if you can see me. Anyways, good evening. My name is Frederic Guino, and I live at 145 Longwater Cove in Roswell, of course. I have a few notes in front of me, so occasionally I will be looking down and not directly in the camera, so you be prepared for that. The context of my comments tonight is the February 8, 2021 Mayor and Council meeting. Item 11 on the agenda was the approval of a settlement agreement related to the Oxbow project. After the presentation and related discussion, the floor was open to the public, and one resident spoke up rather vehemently about the project as well as the proposed settlement, and was cut off mid-sentence and interrupted by Mayor Henry, who said, and I'm quoting from the transcript that I was able to obtain through the Roswell Gov website, I'm quoting, "I am not going to listen to any more of it. You're not an expert in this field. You're not an expert, period. So I'm launching an investigation. It's an independent investigation, and I will not allow you to attack staff in this manner," end quote. My first point of comment is that the city and its citizens all operate under the fundamental principle of freedom of speech and freedom to petition its government, as provided by the First Amendment of the Constitution. Citizen Henry, you're just that, a citizen like me and the other 95 or so thousand people living in this city. You have successfully run for office and you've been lawfully elected as a mayor. This position, however, does not grant you special powers to abridge residents' fundamental freedom of speech. You, and by the way, all the city council members, have taken an oath to follow the laws. And this burst of anger and frustration over hearing what you didn't like to hear was an assault to the Republic to which you just pledge allegiance as you do at the onset of every council meeting. To be clear, the resident, I have never met him, Mr. Yoel. I am not related to him either. Yet I was sufficiently intrigued by his comments to look him up on LinkedIn, and I found that his profile highlighted a very long career in project management and in construction. That would make him particularly expert in that field construction, and project management. And I think I would submit to you, Mayor Henry, that you were hugely mistaken and that you let your frustration and anger overcome civil discourse, common sense, and the law. I also wish to point out that after the outburst of emotion that followed the rude interruption, neither the city attorney nor any council member stood up to the mayor in the context of the First Amendment and reminded Mayor Henry that any resident who has been given the floor and the right to speak on a specific issue, given the opportunity and given the right to do so, unfettered, as provided by the Constitution, and without any precondition of expertise. I am particularly saddened by the lack of reaction from Councilman Judy. I also looked at his LinkedIn profile, who indicates that he is a lawyer or he has completed a law degree. Constitutional law is a core curriculum in the first year law school, and I think that you should take that at heart to protect the Constitution. I'm also equally disappointed as the city attorney. I thought that his role, included counseling the mayor on the boundaries of her duties, responsibilities, and capacities. So I am hopeful, Mayor Henry, that the city council and the city attorney will provide a public apology to the resident for the blatant lack of professionalism carried out toward him, for the disparaging comments made toward him, and for the serious lapse in abridging the unalterable First Amendment rights to free speech. I'm in fact so perturbed by this situation that it led me to wonder whether Mayor Henry, if this meeting had been at City Hall rather than through Zoom, would have asked the police officer present to forcibly remove this citizen because of the dissenting comments made on this project. I'm hopeful a public apology will be issued. The second point of my comments will be with regards to the project itself. Councilman Zapata summed up the number. This project is today still idle and is now costing close to $14 million. To put things in perspective, $14 million amount to roughly the equivalent of 20% of the 2021 operating budget of the city of Roswell.
Thank you, sir. And I would like to ask our Assistant City Attorney to speak up regarding this legal matter. Mr. Halsey.
The Supreme Court of the United States has held that a presiding officer of a governmental entity has the right to run the meeting and to make rulings regarding orderly and efficient meetings. I listened to the exchange between Mr. Yowell and Mayor Henry, and Mr. Yowell was allowed to speak freely, was allowed to criticize staff, which is a violation of the rules that all speakers are held to in this. But anyway, the Supreme Court of the United States and the many circuit courts have held that the principles of having efficient meetings, I'll quote here, because of government's substantial interest in having such meetings conducted with relatively orderliness and fairness to all, officials presiding over such meetings must have discretion under the reasonable time, place, and manner constitutional principle to set subject matter agendas and to cut off speech which they reasonably perceive to be or imminently to threaten a disruption of the orderly and fair progress of the discussion, whether by virtue of its irrelevance, its duration, or its very tone and manner. That is left to the discretion of the presiding officer, which Mayor Henry exercised, and is in keeping with the case law that exists regarding meetings. And the speaker asked about if the mayor has the authority to remove someone from the meeting, and under the case law, the answer is yes, it has been done. And I prepared a memo regarding this in reference to the former Mayor Wood back in 2017, and the law hasn't changed from that time.
Thank you, Mr. Halsey. The next speaker on the agenda this evening is Mr. Jason Yowell.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I want to thank the previous speaker for his comments and his support. I disagree with the city attorney's interpretation of my comments, but I'm going to move on to just questions. I'm not really here to comment so much as to ask questions, and my questions all pertain to the Oxbow project. The first question I have is, how much has the city been billed so far for the investigation? I understand that it goes in 3 phases. At each phase, billing will be submitted, and that an interim report will be given. And I understand that people are being asked, are being interviewed by the attorneys there. So that would mean the first phase of document retrieval has been done, which means you should have a bill and you should have a report. And I'm just wondering, have all members of council been given an update on the status of the investigation with the first report and the billing for the first phase so far? My next question is, why did the construction plans that were put out to bid indicate a 22-foot deep pit in the area designated to be the return parcel in the contract to acquire the hardware store property? And why was that in such contrast to the pad-ready plan with controlled compaction backfill that also included completely paved parking lots as indicated in the purchase contract with the hardware store owners? My next question is, where was the money for that particular phase of work budgeted? Because it clearly wasn't in the plans that were put out for public bid. My next question is, the transportation director had indicated that the work had stopped because there were right-of-way issues that needed to be resolved. And I'd like to know specifically, where were those right-of-way issues that he referred to? My next question is, why would the clock on the acquisition contract for the hardware store not have been contingent on all other necessary right-of-way acquisitions being complete? To have that clock start ticking with an open-ended, unknown consequence, I can't even begin to understand. I wouldn't write a contract like that, and I've written plenty of construction contracts. And if they were not germane to the return parcel, why would it have been an issue on the right-of-way acquisitions that were not specific to that property? My next question is, was an environmental 2 study ever done to determine whether or not the gas station had contaminated the return parcel site? That environmental clearance would have constituted an implied pad-ready condition because of the adjacent gas station. If that was never done, why not? Because you could have completed the whole thing, and a clever attorney, which clearly Don Rollator is, would have said, well, where's the environmental 2 study? And if you didn't have it, you wouldn't have a pad-ready parcel to convey. My next question is, has the city acquired that portion of the gas station property that was needed to connect Oxbow Alley to Atlanta Street, and that also extended somewhat into the return parcel? Because I look on the tax map on the City of Roswell GIS site, and it would appear that that hasn't happened, but that doesn't necessarily mean it hasn't been recorded. My next question is, why were there no contingencies written into the purchase contract for the hardware store property? Why did the clock on the return parcel start at the closing of the property that the city bought, and not when it took possession, which was 1 year after the actual purchase had occurred? My next question is, why did the work stop in October? I understand that October is the date in which the return parcel was supposed to be delivered, and the city was then in breach of that contract. But the city would have been no less in default if it had kept working, and there was no.
Thank you, sir. And I will ask Mr. Fisher to respond in writing to your questions that you raised this evening, and we will get those to you as soon as we can. Those are the only two folks that we had on the agenda this evening to speak. And I thank you all again for attending. We are adjourned.